Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of RocGrowth Candids. And today we are tackling a very specific and interesting topic, which entails companies that have been around the Rochester area for a while, but that have decided to actually relocate into Rochester. We have George.Daddis, whose company actually just relocated, I believe, yesterday. Into the city of Rochester. So this is very kind of breaking news from his perspective, and so we'll get to hear about Omni-ID and now Panasonic and their journey, and Ralph Dandrea, who is the CEO and co-founder of ITX, who is in the process of moving his company into Rochester. So perhaps we actually should start by maybe learning just a little bit about each of your companies so we can understand the context of your decision afterwards. Do you want to start, George?
Sure. Well, good evening. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate all the faces out there and seeing a lot of the folks that I've met over the years. Let's see. Omni-ID. We started our Rochester branch, as it were, in 2011. The management team had been operating Omni-ID since, I don't know, early 2000s or something as a hardware business. Not going so well as a pure hardware business. So they asked myself and I recruited a number of other really great people to help me out, move Omni-ID into a solutions business. That is specifically applying Internet of Things technologies to manufacturing. We track materials flow through large capital goods. What that means is we figure out where all the parts are in automotive factories like Ford and Daimler and Chrysler, and even other sectors like Facebook is a big customer, Merck, Whirlpool. We track all those materials they have on their factory floors and help them build up their cars and whatever else that they make. So we took the company from about $500,000 a year to well into the double-digit millions. We have about 5 customers rolling out now in some good volume. Facebook, Merck, and some of those names I mentioned. As of 2018, however, our backing fund, which was Collar Capital out of New York City, their fund had a lifetime that ended actually around 2014. They had been funding the company since probably, I think, 2000 or so. So they asked me to move it. So 2018 came, and I spent most of my life on the road. Went to places like BMW, which has a really great venture arm, by the way, and Motorola Zebra, Kubota, a number of PE firms like out of Philadelphia, New York City. A lot of Chinese investors went over there. There was a lot of interest back then. But anyway, I finally settled on Panasonic. It was a great fit for us. We're very, very synergistic with them. They are fantastically solid in industrial devices. It used to be, just fun fact, they were about 70–80% consumer, right? TVs, hair dryers, that sort of thing. 30% industrial. That has been flipped around completely. 30% consumer. Everything else is industrial automation. But they were primarily device-oriented, and so they wanted us for our solutions. And so since there was very little overlap, since they were going to allow us to operate reasonably independently, we still have our own sales force, all that. It was essentially the best of all the worlds I could hope for. Good, strong backing from a large corporation with investment and a long-term vision. They think generationally, not quarter to quarter. And not a lot of overlap, which would give us a risk to being absorbed or having functions moved out. So I went after them hard, and that took most of 2018. But we finally put it all together in January 5th, and it was acquired, and we've got, actually the solutions portion of Omni-ID was the part that was sold, and we left the hardware portion, the original portion that was there even before I arrived in 2011, around, and they're still there even today. But as Panasonic's version of Omni-ID, we still have a lot of locations around the world, India, going to open up in China, Europe, and of course North America and here in Rochester. So very excited. Panasonic, we'll talk more about Panasonic later in why, but that's our history. That's probably my 3rd or 4th company in the area. I see some folks from Allworks here today. Really great group. Really love working with those folks. Had a couple of other companies in the interim, but I don't know. It's just a great place to build companies here in Rochester.
Excellent. And Ralph, what's the history of ITX?
Well, I go second, so it's tough to follow George. So he's done a lot of things. I got one company, which is ITX, and we started 22 years ago in Rochester, but we didn't have an office until we had 30-something people. And at that time, we'll talk a little more tonight, but nobody wanted to be downtown, so we weren't downtown. But we've grown over the years. We've been pretty consistent in our growth. We've grown to a little over 250 people. I'm not exactly sure of the number, but we have offices in different cities. We have people in 14 states throughout the Americas, actually. So it's been a fun ride. We build software products for other companies. So whether that be internet applications, mobile applications, or software that runs machines, we build value propositions into software so other companies basically can charge their customers for using their product. So we don't do like marketing type websites. We don't do staffing. We don't do projects. There's a lot of things that we chose not to do. We focused in this one particular area, and it's worked out really well for us. So we've gotten really good at user experience, really good at innovation when it comes to how we build value propositions into software products. And we've gotten really good at architecture, security, all the things that we're not quite at the level you have to be at for products that say run manned spaceflight operations, but we're getting pretty close. Our center of operations is here in Rochester. It always has been, and we decided to double down and continue to keep it here and grow primarily in Rochester for that, at least the administrative center. And that's what our move is about.
So turning to the move, maybe George, you can start. What is it that actually prompted you to decide to move downtown, and what factors did you weigh in that decision?
Right. Well, first, maybe where did we move downtown? So we moved, how many people have been around in Rochester for most of their lives? Come on, raise your hands. Okay. So is everyone familiar with the Changing Scene restaurant? That's where we are. Yeah, it is the coolest place in the world, I got to tell you. And before anyone asks, I will tell you, because the question always comes, are we going to get it to rotate again? Inevitably. Unfortunately, they built out walls across the old rotating platform. So if we do have electrical engineers on staff, and so I am anticipating coming in one Monday morning and finding some broken walls and a lot of angry landlords. But right now, no, it actually structurally being, but I am told that they simply shut it off. No issues, it wasn't broken, it wasn't coming to a grinding halt and sparks. They just simply shut it off. So anyway, it is a fantastic spot. We have the 21st floor, that's this flying saucer, and we have the first floor where we have a showroom and a lab put on. And then we plan on growing quite a bit, and Panasonic is going to be investing, so maybe over the next 3 to 5 years, 50 to 100 people or so. So hopefully we'll grow down or up from the bottom, I don't know, we'll see. But that's where we are. So why? There's the normal reasons, right? In Rochester, logistically, the downtown is just the center, right? So got people on the west side and the east side and the south side. It's just a good commute. We have a underground parking garage connected. I very much like, probably the same thing that Ralph will speak about, the fact that we're building a bit of a tech corridor here, right? So we got the Metropolitan, we got our building, Tower 280, of course the Next Corp building. You know, these things start with critical masses, and if we get bunches of even, you know, young kids, the 20s, the 30s, anyone younger than 56 in my view is a young kid. Anyway, you get those circulating around, that'll start the critical mass, and that's what we're hoping to see. There's tons of other reasons, but and a lot of them subjective, but you know, the downtown has always been personal, but maybe we'll get on those later. Sure. But that's some of the core business reasons.
So Ralph, does your new space rotate?
Ours does not rotate, unfortunately. Great view, but doesn't rotate. We didn't do it for any strategic reason other than that's what our people wanted. So we did a survey last year and asked our people where they wanted the office to be, whether we would stay in the same location or we would look at alternates. And if we were looking at an alternate, where would you like it to be? And the results of the survey came out to be 50-50 split. If someone expressed a preference, they split between Pittsford and the city. And so we were actually contemplating having 2 offices. Because there were people that were very, very aggressively pro-Pittsford or pro-city. And some people even specified a neighborhood or a building in the city. So it makes you sorry for asking, right? But when we dug a little bit deeper, we did an analysis of, because we have a remote culture, so a lot of people don't work in the office all the time. So some people are in 2 days a week, some people are in 4 days a week, some people are in 2 days a month. So we did an analysis of the people that were in the office and how often they were in the office. When we only gave a vote to people who were in the office 45% of the time or more. And so it jumped up to 70-something%. I think it was like 75%. And then if I pulled out the owners and the managers, it went to 85%. And so clearly our team wanted to be downtown, and our managers had to kind of suck it up. Because they all live right next to the office in Pittsford, like me. I live like 4 minutes away. Now I come into the city. So it was really based on where our people wanted to be. And I'll say that when I started ITX, I left a company, and my office was 49 Stone Street, which was right next to the parking garage and across from the Chase Tower, now the Metropolitan. And nobody wanted to be there. Everybody hated coming down. They didn't feel safe. They didn't feel comfortable. There was nothing. There was one hot dog cart while the Bausch and Lomb building was under construction, and that was it. No food trucks, no nothing else, no restaurants. And so when I left, downtown wasn't even an option. And now to see things change in the time frame of a generation is really exciting, to see that this is now the place to be. And I came in and I looked at the floor and I looked out the one side and I looked down at the building I used to work in. And I'm like, wow, things come around, you know?
So I think that some people talk about this idea that those companies are located downtown that serves to kind of entice and retain employees, especially maybe some younger employees or those who are more technology oriented. To what extent do you think it'll be an advantage to be now downtown, and what are the things that you hope that others, whether it's developers, city, economic development groups, whatever, what more should they do to make it an even more attractive place for companies like yours?
Well, thinking about our immediate business goals, it's growth. It's attracting great people. First of all, great people make the great businesses, and you just can't succeed without it. And that's got to be priority one for everyone in this room, I'm imagining. So from our perspective, the space that we chose is actually iconic, right? I mean, it's very, very unique, and literally everyone gets an office that has gorgeous 21-story views, right? Because all the offices are located on the periphery, so. As a recruiting tool, we think it's an advantage, right? And certainly, as I mentioned before, the fact that we're there in the middle of what I hope is going to be a thriving tech center will also provide us. Got our business, got a number of other businesses. People can feel secure that their career has a lot of different options, right? And then, of course, if you start thinking about the 20s and the 30-somethings, and there's a lot of the neighborhoods that take the college kids right out of school, right by Park Avenues and the South Wedges and all those other great places, Gregory Streets and that kind of thing. They're very close by. The intrepid folks can even bike to work at that point, So really good stuff. Yes, I'm a cyclist too, so I love that. In any case, so all those are good reasons. Now, what would we need? What would we improve if we had a magic wand? So. There's been incredible amount of revitalization going on along Main Street. If you take a look at from Village Gate all the way up through Eastman and all the way up to the Liberty Pole, I mean, it is really beautiful. Fortunately, the tide has kind of stopped at that point, so it quite hasn't gotten across the river yet. So I really would like to see some of the urban blight that has been there since God when, right, our 80s, 1980s, I don't know when, but cleaned up. So that's number one. Number two, it was very, very sad to see Hart's Grocery, close up. And I'm sure a lot of you guys in the downtown see that. But we need that kind of infrastructure, And, some of the restaurants in our area, there's a lot of quaint mom and pops, and we actually love going to them. But, you take some business customers or you see your top management in from Japan or what have you. You'd like to get to some more formal place. A little bit more infrastructure like that might be nice. But it does have some good hotels down there. The hotels right nearby First Federal many of them are in really good shape. Of course, there's a Strath Allen, which is one of our better ones right down the street. So some of the infrastructure's there, but there's some ways to go. And I'd like to see this side, that side of the river get a little bit more of the revitalization as well. But we've got Rock the Riverway and a number of other projects, and I know our new landlord, Chris Hill, is just, boy, he gushed, I don't know, about 20 minutes long in Rock the Riverway when we first showed up at his building. And I know there's lots new coming. So, yeah, my view.
Well, I think urban development is kind of like a video game, right? There's Super Mario Brothers level 1, then there's Super Mario Brothers level 2, and we've got a lot of levels to go. There's been a lot of change that's already occurred, but I would say, for me personally, in dealing with the space that we now have, parking was an issue, and the city was not able or willing to even engage in a conversation around it. So that I can see that becoming an increasing problem. But aside from that, the levels that I see that we need to pick off sooner than later are, like George said, the services in the city. There's no drugstore downtown. There's no grocery store. There's a lot of these services that make it livable that are still absent, and we need to get those in place. And that comes from critical mass. So it's sort of a chicken and the egg type of a thing. But I like the idea of the mixed developments, where we have some office space and residential space in the same place. That makes it more livable, makes it easier. It's also more balanced, especially if used for parking. People park in the morning and people parking in the evening. So there's a lot of services. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is that, we talk often about, and I hear the colleges talking about, how do we keep more of our graduating students here? But we have to think about the entire life cycle of a person, or the entire working life. How do you keep people when they graduate college becomes also the next level is how do you keep them once they get past that and want to grow? How do you have places to bring people back, higher level jobs for people to slide into? And in order to do that, we have to have a healthy business environment and lots of job creation. But they're different needs. The needs of a young family are very different from a 28-year-old professional that's single and loves being out every night downtown. You're not going to send your kids to the city schools if you're a professional, and that's a really difficult question that we have to answer. Is how do we make the city livable so that people can be here no matter what stage of life they're in?
So I know that each of your companies is expecting quite substantial growth in the coming years, and just wanted to kind of ask each of you to talk a little bit about that and what you'll be looking for and how you expect to expand in Rochester. But then also, in the case of you, George, in particular, when you talk to Panasonic about, okay, this is where this is why you should buy a company in Rochester, this is why it's a good place to not only buy a company, but also grow and recruit people, kind of what were the things you said? What were the challenges to explain it to them?
Well, the first thing is, how many have been on the plane, talked about being from Rochester and hung your head almost involuntarily in shame, right? It's that everyone thinks about the weather, right, and the clouds and all of that kind of good stuff. And we did have that reputation, right? It's all Rochester, it's a small town, it's not going to lie. And that's the part I really have to work on with Panasonic. They would like us to establish some development centers in Boston, New York City, that kind of thing. Wrong. We've got plenty of fantastic people here. And this is actually one of my messages. I don't have great magic bullets. All I want to do here at this moment in time is to send out a call to action. We've got a window of opportunity. We've heard, as entrepreneurs, we've heard of the adoption curve and the chasm and all that. But we've got an opportunity. We have fantastic large companies that have grown here for the last, 3, 4, 5, 6 decades, maybe more even, spitting out incredible amount of talented people and technologies. Those big companies are dying away. The ties that brought us here, being the capital of patents per capita, is no longer here. But the people still are for maybe 5 more years, who knows how long. We've got a number of great small businesses. It's time to really quickly, right now, get together and get this ecosystem going, because we've got it now. If we can retain those fantastic people from RIT, from U of R, from all of those colleges, we can get that ecosystem and the critical mass we're looking for. And it's not going to come through bringing in Amazon. That's not my view. I think we need hundreds, if not near 1,000, small 1 to 2 people companies that ultimately grow into companies of Ralph's size, hundreds, 250, 500 people. And that eventually will yield one or two companies will be Xerox size. We got to start now from the ground up, though. And that's my call to action. But I've been passionate about Rochester from the very, very beginning. And that's something I'm communicating and then actually winning the argument on Panasonic. So they've already grown us by 10 folks since January 5th, over 10 folks, about 12. And we're looking, like I said, around 50 to 100 more in the software and that sort of region. Biggest selling points for me are the talent and the kind of the what I just went through here. I've always had a view of things through music. I've been coming downtown to the Eastman School summer programs and jazz programs since I was a kid. I've been riding the monorail at the Midtown Plaza. You know, I've served on a number of boards. For a couple of years, I ran a Rochester Indie Music Fest until I got a real job. I've been asked to join the RPO board. I'm very committed musically to the downtown, and all of this centers around the downtown. And so the cultural center is actually a great selling thing. And so I'll bring the Panasonic folks. I mean, where else can you stop in 2 to 3 nights a week and see a world-renowned concert pianist for next year playing for free for their doctoral, you know, degree? For free. You just walk in, and it's incredible. And we have to treasure that. Anyway, those are some of the selling points. Culture, great people, and a fantastic technology base with colleges all around. It is a great place. We just got to get our act together. Someone mentioned silos before, and I couldn't agree more. We've got to find a way to get a centralized plan. I know I'm not offering answers. I'm offering urgency, if nothing else, but we've got to figure out how to walk in concert, row together.
So Ralph, in your case, in addition to talking about which types of positions you'll be looking for in the near future, you have 5 different offices, people in 14 different states. I mean, I guess the question to you is a little bit different. You could theoretically be building up in any of those. You're choosing to double down, as you said, in Rochester. Kind of how do you explain what to others why you're doing that?
I'm biased because I'm from here.
That helps.
But we're hiring designers, user experience designers, architects, systems engineers, innovation leads, we call them. They're like product managers, product owners. So those are primarily what we do. And then this is our administrative center, so we have enough of, so we do quite a bit of hiring in that area, HR, finance, because this is where it's at for us from Business Center. I would say that Rochester, actually, New York State is a great place to be. The quality of life here is incredible. Like, we have great healthcare, we have great schools, we have great music. You have the shopping. We've got a lot of the things in Rochester. We're just big enough to have to have critical mass, to have the better services and better availability of things. But we're small enough that we don't have the really major big city problems, right? So we're in a good spot. And I think that whenever I hear somebody diss Rochester for whatever reason, you know, you can always point to a city that doesn't apply to. So if it's the cold, why is Toronto doing so well? Right? If it's taxes, why are all these cities in high tax places? I mean, we have an office in Portland, Oregon. Taxes are almost about exactly the same, except there's no sales tax. But there are other taxes they have in Portland. And they're doing great. Right? It's not any one factor. It's a combination of factors. And I don't think that it's this combination problem that we have to solve every single thing, you know, to get the right combination. But I do think a lot of the excuses that people throw just don't hold any water.
Everything has its issues, and Rochester has a few, but for goodness sake, we should put it in perspective. And it's great to see each of your companies thriving here, and congratulations on bringing Panasonic to Rochester. So.